And we're live. So this is the February 2016 GNU Radio Developer Dev Call with a record low number of 4 people. And clearly this is because everyone is so busy hacking on GNU Radio code right now that they can't join the call.
That makes sense.
We have an agenda page out
Yeah.
on the usual spot. So and we have mostly announcements today. So I'm just going to go through these announcements top to bottom. But the call will go on for at least 20 minutes, so you can always join. Actually, I should post the YouTube link. Actually, can one of you guys post the YouTube link while I'm talking? There. Can you see that? Don't worry, I have it.
I think you might. Okay.
Oh, I have it.
Can you get it?
Well, you're doing that because I'm the first item is mine anyway, so I'll just go ahead. So yeah, I just want to give everybody the update on GRCon 16. We have been working steadily on getting that set up. We've never done like a huge public announcement, so I guess this is maybe the first time. But I did put it up on. We do have a webpage now. It's bare bones. It's just the information about location and date. Specifically, we are doing it at the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado. So it's on campus, and it's the week of September 12th. So we're going to be doing like pretty similar to the structure-wise to what we've done in the past, which is Monday we'll have, the New Users Day, some form of that, 3 days of the tech conference, and then the last day of our kind of hands-on hackfest / code sprint / whatever we want to call it. So it will be a full week as usual. It'll be in September. Hopefully it'll be gorgeous in Colorado at that point, so it should be really good. Fairly easy to get to Boulder from the Denver airport, so we don't think that that's going to be a huge issue. And we're actually thinking about other, trying to provide some form of transportation ourselves. There's no guarantee or promise on that, but we're looking into options for helping get people to Boulder. And then once we're in Boulder, it's fairly easy to get around. But yeah, so we've got that up. We will be, issuing call for papers or call for presentations soon, and be kind of providing more information over the next few months. But yeah, the general context is planned for September in Colorado.
Cool.
Anyone have thoughts on that?
Go there, be there. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Because we've gotten so much better at putting these on, as anybody from the last one can attest to. The last one was amazing, and I think we're just going to keep getting better. I'm excited about the new venue. It was a tough choice to move out of DC because we were pretty successful and we liked DC and it was good to us. But we thought we want to try a new location. Hopefully get kind of different newer faces, but still a lot of the old faces as well. So yeah, that's the plan.
Cool. So while we're on the issue, on the topic of conferences, just like to wrap up FOSDEM, which was January 30th and 31st in Brussels, Europe, in Belgium. So we had an SDR track like we've had for the last 3 years. It was very successful, in my opinion. We had a lot of people. We had a lot of speakers. We actually had too many speakers to fit them all in, and the way we managed to get around that was to move Tom to a main track. And Tom's talk to the main track was also well received, I thought. So yeah, so we're very successful, and I know that because we never miss any deadlines in terms of like submission deadlines, for example. So we always have enough speakers, and our room was packed from like 9 o'clock to basically until we had to close up. Other dev rooms they sort of finish at 4 or 3:30 or even, and yeah, we had lots of good topics, and I'd like to thank all the speakers again. Now, in theory, we should have all the videos from those talks available online on the FOSDEM website. But because the video system changed around a bit, it's still in a bit of a chaotic state, and I hope we'll clear that up. And if someone out there wants to help us with the editing, please contact me offline. Just contact me by email. That would be very, very helpful. It's a little bit confusing I'm not quite sure what we actually need to do to for the editing, but I have high hopes that we'll have videos available because it worked last year, the year before that. Yeah, and we'll try and do this again next year for so. Want to talk about the Hackfest, Tom?
Yep. Okay. So before FOSDEM, we had our last Hackfest was in Berlin just beforehand. So there was about a half a dozen of us. Kind of a few. We talked to a few new people there. There was one guy who was in town for business who stopped by for a couple of days, which was awesome. So glad to kind of get some new faces in, new people involved. I put the link on the Hackfest for the Hackfest page that we kept kind of live. It was the agenda of what we were hoping to accomplish, and I was kind of striking through and making notes on what we actually did manage to accomplish, which was quite a lot. From a technical perspective, it was a really good Hackfest. We closed a huge number of issues, features, bugs, some long-standing ones. To thank TNT for that. And yeah, so it was some really good stuff that came out of it. Now, one of the issues that we kind of keep facing with some of our Hackfests, especially the ones in Europe, for the past couple times we've tried to do this, but also a few of them in the US as well, when we do them outside of Edis Research. Whenever we do them in Edis Research, they tend to be really large, they're great, we get tons of stuff done, really good setup, structure, community, et cetera, et cetera. So those are awesome, and I want to keep that. Now, those tend to be very developer focused. Like we it's all the developers come together, like kind of the hardcore core developers come together, and we do solve a lot of the problems with GNU Radio. And I really want to keep that. I think having those types of hackfests, like the big Edis ones, at least once a year, makes a huge amount of sense because they've just been too good to the project as Edis has in the past. But for other ones, I just have a few thoughts that I'm going to put out there, and we'll kind of iterate on these in the background and try to figure out how to make this stuff work. But you just kind of hear about so we call them Hackfests, but I think we're kind of the only community that uses that particular term. Most other communities call them hackathons, and hackathons tend to be more focused on community building, and we've been more focused on project building. So right, we're more focused on here are some things that the project needs development work on. Let's come together and do those, which, like I said, has been really good for us as the developers to help the project. But I can understand where that might be not could be daunting or not the atmosphere to bring in new people to the project. So I'm hoping that we can maybe rethink some of these, kind of more outreach-oriented hackfests with kind of more user-friendly, user-oriented, projects, hands-on, maybe some tutorial-type things, maybe some more just kind of lecture or educational type aspects of the project to help maybe bring in more people as opposed to, just sitting there and hacking on stuff that we've been doing in the past. So I'm going to play with this, and I'm going to talk to the other people that have been heavily involved in the past Hackfest and try to make this a little bit more of a kind of community outreach type event as opposed to what we've been doing. Any quick thoughts on that?
No.
All right.
If there's people out there hearing this and they're interested in getting in touch with us about, getting in touch with the community, please reach out to us. I mean, this is the whole point of the Hackfest, as Tom said. We try and do our best to get people involved. But if you want to reach out to us, that's fine. We can say that's great. Please do so, and maybe we can arrange something.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we can turn this into something more than what we've been doing. So Martin, real fast on the next item, I stuck this in there, is I forgot to mention the WinCom 16 on the original agenda, so I just updated. And quick mention, the WinCom, formerly the SDR Forum, they held their annual technical conference. This year it's in Reston, Virginia, which is fairly close to DC, kind of between DC and Dulles Airport. mid-March, and on March 17th, the Win Forum, along with myself and Andy Clegg, have put together a SDR platforms workshop. The WinCom is no longer as focused on just SDR as it used to be, and this is kind of us giving a bit of a state-of-the-art of what's been going on in the SDR world for the past few years. So Matt, Edis, and myself are keynoting it in the morning to start off, and then we've got a handful of sessions on invited lectures of people we know doing good stuff in the SDR world. GNU Radio, but also outside of GNU Radio, just kind of general SDR discussions. We've got a panel session that is going to pit myself from GNU Radio against, let's see, Preston Marshall from Google. So get their thoughts. I've got a friend of mine coming from Northrop Grumman, but they're kind of coming from the Red Hawk SCA direction. So it should be pretty fun. Oh yeah, and we got MathWorks as well. So MathWorks will give the kind of MATLAB perspective of SDR. So with luck, we'll have a really spirited discussion. If we're really lucky, somebody might break a chair over my back. So it should be a really entertaining conversation between four very opposing views on some of this stuff. So it should be good. And yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. So if you're in the area or want to come to the WinCom this year, I think we've got a pretty good show, at least from what we've been putting together on the last day on March 17th.
Cool.
Cool. That would be awesome. Some good names in there. Wow.
Yeah, GNU Radio is popping up on more and more conferences outside of our own, so that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a completely different topic to talk about next, which is GSOC, the Google Summer of Code. So people who've been following this know that last year we weren't accepted, and I think mostly that was because we didn't prepare well enough, and the ideas page wasn't all that good and all of that. And so actually the last couple of weeks we've been putting a lot of energy and effort into getting a really, really good application out. Now the application deadline is tomorrow, or today, no, it's tomorrow. And our application is already out, and we will know whether or not they accept us by February 29th, so end of this month. So I'm not really going to talk about GSOC all that much until we know whether or not we're accepted. I just hope we are. But one thing I'd like to point out is that the ideas page for GSOC, which is linked in the agenda, is up. We have 12 really good projects, and if anyone wants to sort of help amend this page, that's fine. We can always add details and stuff like that. One thing I'd like to avoid is adding sort of raw ideas for projects at this point. So I'd like to sort of declare it clean and say, like, this page has to stay clean, at least until we get notified of our acceptance or not, just to make sure that it really looks nice and it doesn't sort of have any, raw ideas in there that our students really can't parse anyway. So yeah, and I'd like to thank everyone who came up with ideas and helped put stuff on this and has agreed to mentor and all of that. And yeah, so I'm just hoping it'll work out fine, and we'll keep you updated.
You can lock that page down. That might be what the desired way to do it.
So I could, but I'm just going to trust people to not mess it up. Because people can edit it and should edit it. I'm just hoping they'll edit it in the right way. And I have a feed in my feed reader that updates me of all wiki updates. So I kind of which filled up when we had that spam issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can sort of keep track of this page, and I will.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Next item is release information. We don't have Jonathan here to discuss that, or even Nathan, who's kind of being brought up as helping with the releases. But we did release 3.791. So we had a patch release off of the latest version fairly recently. That seemed to go pretty well. But that's out there now, so if you want to do an update to that, obviously still API compatible with everything. Just some bug fixes, some good bug fixes though. The only other release information we could talk about is the next 3.7.10 release. Again, we've got some really good stuff, I think, coming as far as new features for 3.7.10, but it's not at the point where we have a definite date to a release date for that or a plan for that one. So I would expect that we'd have more information on that for our March call and possibly looking towards the April-May timeframe. Yeah, I think that's all we can say about that for today.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about PyBombs for a little bit. Just a quick reminder, we updated PyBombs to version 2. So it's still PyBombs, and it's still called PyBombs, but it's now version 2. And version 2 is very different from version 1. Under the hood, it's a complete rewrite, but also the commands are slightly different. And everything is actually different. The recipe format is slightly different, and prefixes are slightly different, all of that. But overall, I think it's a great improvement. We released the first version of PyBombs a while back, and actually during the Hackfest, and I knew it would have some bugs, because this is a tool that's supposed to run on all kinds of systems and then put them all in the same state where they can run radio. So testing-wise, it was a bit raw. We've gotten a lot of good feedback, so I'll be tagging a new version of PyBombs very soon, which means everyone that uses pip can simply use pip to update PyBombs, and we'll get the 2.01 version. I don't know, next week at the latest, and I'll send out an announcement over the mailing list. Yeah, but I'm really appreciating all the bug reports that are coming in on GitHub. Yeah, there's been a lot of good, a lot of people have reported bugs that I've never ever heard of, so that's a really good sign. Please continue doing that, and we'll get a really useful GNU Radio installation tool.
Yeah, and I want to point out too.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
No, go ahead, Michael.
Okay. The one thing, I mean, I've not looked at it significantly. I remember working with PyBombs 1, if you want to call it that, or as previous. And the one question is, can I tell it to install GNU Radio without anything else? Tell it where everything else is located and just have it install. Will that work?
I don't think I understand the question.
Suppose I have everything already pre-installed via Mac ports.
Oh, okay.
Can I then tell PyBombs to go off and install just one specific thing, assuming all the other dependencies are met externally?
Yeah, you can.
Can you?
Okay, that's that. Maybe I'll.
So,
I don't know. I couldn't do that in the previous PyBombs, I don't think, but I didn't test it out an awful lot. I'll say that.
No, I'm not quite sure if it'll work out of the box with Mac ports, but it has everything in place to do that. So. So on an Ubuntu system, if you don't change the configuration, it'll try and install certain things from source and other things from through apt-get, for example. So if you try and install GNU Radio, it'll look for stuff like Boost and I don't know what else there is. Okay, Thrift you can't actually.
C++ unit.
Yeah, C++ unit, stuff like that. So it'll see if everything is installed through apt-get, for example, and if all the dependencies are met, then it'll just install GNU Radio. Now, the way it does that, it has sort of backends to figure out if packages are installed or not. So it can use apt-get, for example, but it can also use package config. It can also just see if there's a command in your path that is available. And so I'm not quite sure what happens if you run this on Mac ports on Mac right now. I know that Seth is working on that, but if it doesn't work, then we're not far off from making it work.
Okay. So Seth would be the person to contact about that, probably.
Yeah. So I'm not doing anything on the Mac side. I wouldn't even know where to start. But yes, Seth is.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the thought is that I have all these ports that are GNU Radio oriented ports. I mean, obviously, Volt, UHD, GNU Radio are the starting ones. But there's GR, LTE, there's all these other GR out-of-tree modules, and what it would be really nice to do is to switch over from, I've sort of a set script that I use to make all this stuff work, and it's fine, but it'd be easier if I could use something that GNU Radio already provides to make this happen. So switching all of the basic installs to using PyBombs too instead. But that means that each one has to be incrementally installable upon the next one, independent of the prior ones. And
Yeah,
that's
the
where I
way
just
you
don't
do
know
that
if that's what PyBomb is designed to do or not.
yeah, it is. You can have infinite prefixes. Um,
Cool.
and yeah, you can install GNU Radio with each and every one of them like separately, and then have
Okay.
it as an out of tree module, for example. That would work.
Cool. I'll talk with you off this thing about that, and maybe bring Seth in, and maybe we can make some arrangements to make it work.
Sure.
Yeah, I would definitely
Cool.
recommend if you talk about that, make sure Seth is aware of any kind of thoughts or updates that you might want to see in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a surprise there. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
So Tom, you were going to say something?
Oh, it was just kind of a general warning or kind of issue. A lot of what I have experienced myself and what I've heard from other people when things go wrong in PyBombs is, at this point, there were definitely a lot of bugs early on, and we Martin was really good about squashing those quickly. But a lot of them are now due to pre-installed versions of UHD or Volk or GNU Radio itself, kind of getting in the way. So I'm hoping a lot of that goes away when we've all been just using PyBombs for so long that that's just the only way that things have been installed and it's managed better. But that is kind of a thing to be aware of, is if you have previously installed GNU Radio on your system and then you start using PyBombs, things can go wrong or wonky because of that. And unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot that we could legitimately do with PyBombs to fix that, unless we just go really crazy about scraping your system for any reference to GNU Radio or UHC or Volk or any of the other things that we run. So anyways, be aware of that. And also, I would ask you to be aware that because of that, we've been getting a few fairly rough responses to these things. So deal with us as intelligent adults that are trying our best to work with your problems. But they are all individual problems at that point. So. Just a call for civility sometimes. Okay, but I think I feel like the traffic on PyBombs has died down. I feel like I'm seeing more feature requests than bug reports, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And I have, like, a lot of people have actually told me that it's a good tool, and
yeah,
they've been using it and amending it as they need. Okay, that's all I think we need to say on PyBombs. You want to talk about Android a little bit?
Yeah. So I've been working on a few things for this. I've been continuing to improve it. A lot of the focus for the past couple months was to make sure that that things were working for FOSDEM. And the Android stuff was working for FOSDEM. The demo itself wasn't working because I missed a decimal point in my flow graph, and that screwed up everything, which was hysterical to find later. But one of the things that's been problematic with the use, there are two things that are really problematic with the use of GNU Radio and Android at this point. One is it's fairly difficult to interface with the hardware. And the second one is just the installation of all the the building and installation of all the dependencies is pretty rough. The pages are up there, but every time I go back through it and some of the dependencies, the versions have changed, that subtly changes some of the things that we have to do for the install script. So it's a rough thing to get everything built and running properly. So to fix those, the first thing I've actually posted on our agenda page here, there's a link to my GitHub account for this GR hardware service. And this is an app that I wrote that basically, if it's on your system, there's what's called a broadcast receiver that will wait, and if there's a USB device plugged in that that recognizes as a usurp, it will, like a usurp B200 or B210, it will automatically install the firmware and FPGA images. So when that's done, your system is basically ready your apps are now basically ready to be able to use those devices that are connected into your Android device. So that's generally really nice. I've still had some issues with programming my B200, but I think it's my B200's fault. I don't think it's general, so I'd be curious to test this with other people's. Basically, I've got this issue where if I plug it in cold, it never boots it never installs the FPGA properly. But if I unplug it and replug it back in, it works just fine. But that happens on the desktop as well as Android, so I think that's a my device issue. But I did put that in the notes for the hardware, this app that I've created, just in case it does happen to other people. But with luck, that's a one person's problem, and everybody else works just fine, and you get now access to the UHD devices. So that should simplify the issues of people having to try to manage the loading of the firmware and FPGA images, and you can kind of just set it up on your app and go. Okay, this thing that I'm working on right now is to help the second problem of the dependencies, and the model that I'm going with right now is to use Docker, and I want to basically have everything installed into a Docker image that people can then just load up, and they've got all of the files, the binaries, kind of dependencies and versions working and ready for them to link against in their Android applications. So instead of having to try to follow all my instructions, you basically just install this Docker and get it set up properly, and then work off of it from there. So that I hope to have ready soon, and get that out there for people to use. And I think if I have the installation of the dependencies and the easier access and manipulation of the hardware, I can really feel better about myself promoting our GNU Radio on Android concept, and hopefully get more people working and using this stuff. And the other thing is I'm trying to make sure, Philip has been good about keeping an eye on things because, he's been doing the OE builds for the embedded system work, and I've been doing kind of, it's embedded work for Android, but it's a very different model using the Android NDK. So hopefully I don't do anything too terribly wrong to make sure that both those systems are usable for us. All right. Any thoughts or questions? Yeah.
Looks like it.
All right. Then we don't really have too much for working group reports since we only have Philip here. Do you want to say anything at this point? No.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can actually, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if there's power tools in the background, it's not my fault. No, I actually don't have much to say. I mainly tested the microphone. And I'm working on getting Thrift into OE, but it's held up because it does something stupid when Qt5 is in the build. And I'm trying to test that. So nothing very exciting.
Yeah.
Other than I hope to actually have some E310 images with control port enabled for people to fiddle with soon.
No, that'd be good. And I actually had to disable Qt5 on the Android side of things completely because, there's just no point in building for that at this point. But yeah, the Thrift build system's still a mess.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the Qt5 problem is. We tried disabling it blindly. I just can't test locally, and for some other hairy reasons, I haven't been able to get to it this week.
Well, aside from, that's understandable that you guys have your kind of methods and policies for how things are supposed to build and work. Personally, I built Thrift myself using the OE SDK for my E310, and it worked great. So we know it works.
I made it work. It's just that the recipe I have has a bad interaction when Qt5 is enabled, and we don't want to break.
Yeah. We
don't want to put shit in OEs. We're actually trying to prevent doing that.
Nope, absolutely. I think that's definitely the right decision from your guys' perspective. One of the things that I've been kind of promoting or pushing here with the use of Thrift, which enables control port right now in GNU Radio, is this idea of allowing us to have remote, command and control over the GNU Radio flow graph. We use this in Android for how we communicate between the Java application and the running flow graph. And then I've been using it to create Android apps they're non-GNU Radio, but they're apps that use control port to control an E310.
Okay.
So it's a very similar model of managing the interface, so the control of kind of a running flow graph elsewhere, whether or not it's on the same system or remotely.
Have you got an app on Android that can do like a waterfall?
No, I don't. I haven't. I mean, people have used the RF analyzer, which I forget the guy who created that off the top of my head, but that was kind of built for the RTL SDRs, and I think they got it working for the Hack RF as well. So people have used his code to do waterfall plots with usurps and GNU Radio stuff, but obviously that's his code. So I haven't pushed anything. I haven't released anything with that because of copyright and issues and respecting it being his code. So I'd love to either redo that or possibly talk to the guy and see what we can do about taking that already. But no, that is the visualization on Android is for GNU Radio in particular is still lacking a huge amount of work. And I haven't myself wanted to spend too much time on that because it's just I feel like I'd be learning a skill set for Android development work that would be almost wasted, and I would rather people who are really good at that help us out with creating those types of graphical capabilities.
Yeah, I have got, or at least got Shiny SDR running on an E310, which is kind of interesting but somewhat different from this approach.
Yeah. Now, if we could open up control port, we can get snapshots of signals and we could display them. Using ZMQ, we could open up a pipe and have it coming over and display it on a tablet or an Android phone. If we had a good, I'd love to see us have a kind of a modular FFT and waterfall widgets or classes that we could drop into GNU Radio Android projects very easily. Just as a kind of general part of our environment, because that would be really cool. So yeah, if anybody's listening or anybody knows anybody who's looking for a good Android challenge, and honestly, this is one of those things where we could provide you with a file of samples for you to build a waterfall plot off of. So you don't even have to worry about it being from GNU Radio or hardware involved in the loop. We just need the class that takes the data that we'll have and renders it in SDR ways. So there'd be very little GNU Radio or radio knowledge required to do this. So it could be a good challenge for somebody who's just an Android person.
Also, these kind of widgets and graphical extensions for Android and radio in general are part of our ideas list on GSOC. So if we do get accepted, and that sounds exciting, maybe that's something we can.
Yeah. But this is one of the things, just to kind of harp on this a bit more, it is one of the purposes of how I structured the Android work and why I'm pushing this kind of control port model is because I want to help people who are application developers not have to worry about the GNU Radio integration. They don't have to be GNU Radio experts. So you could write a cool UI or GUI system and not have to be a GNU Radio expert or really know much about radio at all. So that was very much a point of me doing it in the way that I did it, was to separate those ideas and issues. And also, I put a link to the GR hardware services on my GitHub page. I do have a couple of at least one other main GNU Radio and Android project, GR control port. So it is a control port Java wrapper around the Thrift service. So it becomes a Java class that's you just link into your application, create a control port object based on a host name and a port number, and then just do kind of gets and sets through there. So again, trying to make it fairly easy to integrate and interface with the GNU Radio system without having to do any of that yourself. All right. Well, let's see. As far as working groups, Sebastian's not here. We normally bug him earlier in the week to give us a rundown of what's happening, but just in general, Sebastian continues to do new stuff, add features, fix stuff with GRC. So that's kind of they've been really good about continuously rolling out improvements to GRC over the past few months, and that's just, again, for the past couple months, it's still been happening. Martin, do you want to say anything else about your stuff or from your perspective?
No, don't really have anything going on right now.
Okay.
I think we had a folk release though, right? Or maybe we can what?
Yes. Did we have a Volk release? Or what's the...
I'm probably mixing things up because Nathan now both manages the folk releases and the GNU releases.
No, you're right. February 7th, Volk 1.2.1 was released. So yeah, there was a release since our last call. Which seems to now be working better. I guess they fixed a bunch of Windows-related problems. Some new kernels. But yeah, so there is a new Volk release.
Cool. I think that wraps up the call. Any last words, anyone? Nope. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Stop the broadcast now. Okay. Yeah, same time next month. See you guys. Bye.
All right. Bye.